despite there being, as you put it, a litany of evidence that supports these high fiber, plant rich dietary patterns, of which there are many that we could name, since that time, keto and carnivore diets, these meat heavy type diets, have continued to surge in popularity, at least on social media, with people sharing stories of overcoming obesity and diabetes, even autoimmune conditions on these kind of very meat heavy diets. What do you make of this movement, these anecdotes, and the kind of evidence around these kind of meat heavy ways of eating for human health?
I think they're extremely unfortunate. And so, first of all, I've pointed out for years, Simon, that short-term improvement of, let's say immune condition or cardiometabolic condition on almost any diet does not impress me, because you could reverse type 2 diabetes by getting cholera. Doesn't make cholera a desirable thing. You could reverse type 2 diabetes by getting cancer and chemotherapy. And you could reverse type 2 diabetes by giving up food altogether and going on a cocaine binge. I kid you not. I mean, all these conditions would be associated with massive reduction in serum cholesterol and a massive reduction in blood sugar. And they would all be absolutely terrible for you. So is what we care about, short-term metabolic perturbation, or is it about lifelong health and vitality? If it's about lifelong health and vitality, so yeah, I have type 2 diabetes, I'd like to reverse it, and then I'd like to live well and prosper with vitality too. Well, then you need to do it by a means that's not just good for you in the short term, but sustainably so. And that would not be cholera, and that would not be a cocaine binge, and that would not be chemotherapy. That would be, some means that promotes health from the origin. So these diets that are very restrictive, so a keto diet is very restrictive. And in comparison to the typical American diet, it's going to reduce your intake of calories. It's going to cause significant weight loss. It's going to lower your blood cholesterol for the most part, although not quite as reliably as almost every other alternative. It's going to lower blood sugar and so forth. But we have no evidence that that diet is sustainable over a lifetime. And so then, most people who use keto as a tactic are left to ask, now what? And most people who go on and off a keto diet lose weight and gain it back, reverse their type 2 diabetes, and then reacquire it. As opposed to a high quality plant predominant diet, which you can certainly stay on forever, where we also have evidence that you can reverse type 2 diabetes, but you can sustain that dietary approach. So in that sense, it's unfortunate in that there's sort of this distraction about short-term outcomes that do not factor in the context of longer term outcomes, because I want what's good for me now, and I also want it to be an investment in the future. And by the way, that kind of argues for thinking about health a little bit more like wealth, where, we certainly care whether or not we can buy what we want today, but we also think about saving money for the longer term. And we should think about health in exactly that same way. I want it today. I want to feel it today. I want to benefit from it today, but not at the expense of tomorrow. I don't want to spend everything I make today and then tomorrow I can't pay the bills. Well, health is like that too. I want to invest in my health for the long term. And then, of course, the other thing that's unfortunate is I truly do think, even, I'm a physician and spent 30 years taking care of patients, and basically advancing the human condition was my life's work. I still think planetary health is the signature issue of our time, because we have some hope of being healthy, vital people on a healthy, vital planet, or we have no hope of being healthy, vital people at all. And so we have to attend to the health of the planet. So these arguments for keto and carnivore and so forth, they leave that out of the discussion altogether. We do not have that luxury. We simply do not have that luxury. So I think they're very unfortunate. Now, what if, big what if eating lots of meat, what if being carnivorous were our only choice? What if we were like lions? What if we were obligate carnivores? Well, then they'd be right. We'd have to eat meat. And then the questions would all be about, how can we do this without ravaging the planet? Do we do it by controlling the numbers of us? Do we do it by developing other means of producing the meat we need? It would be a completely different debate, right? It just turns out that we are constitutional omnivores who are clearly adapted to plant predominant diets, and we do better when our diets are mostly plants, and we do absolutely fine when our diets are exclusively plants, and we simply don't do fine. Our microbiome doesn't do fine when for any extended period of time our diets are all meat. We just don't. One final comment, Simon, and that is these debates about meat and how much meat we should eat. They often invoke our adaptations from the Paleolithic and the fact that we are omnivores, and certainly our ancient ancestors did consume meat. They often fail to provide any clarity on the difference between the kind of meat they tended to eat and the kind of meat we eat today. And that information is readily available in the peer-reviewed literature. So if you're going to fly the paleo flag, be honest about the fact that there was no Paleolithic pepperoni and there were no Paleolithic hot dogs, right? And so the paleoanthropologists who've done this work and made the comparison say, well, you want to think about the kind of meat humans are adapted to eat. Probably about the closest approximation in the modern world would be something like antelope. So let's look at the composition of the flesh of antelope. Well, the average beef cattle have about 35% of total calories in their flesh coming from fat, and most of that fat is saturated, and none of it's omega-3. The average flesh of antelope, 7% of the calories come from fat, so 1/5 the fat content. Almost none of it's saturated, and quite a lot of it is omega-3. So, okay, it's meat and it's meat, but it's night and it's day. Totally different. So, if you're going out with a bow and arrow to get that meat you're eating on the paleo diet, you probably do okay. If you're doing it some other way, hot dogs and hamburgers and pepperoni and so forth, yeah, those were not part of the Paleolithic diet.
Yeah, there's a couple of papers I'll put in the show notes. I think it's Lauren Cordain and Stanley Eaton who describe, and they're fathers, I guess, of the paleo movement, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I'll put that into the show notes for anyone that's interested in the facts there. But that gets me thinking about this whole idea of how do you, and I know you speak to this, I've heard you speak about this before, how do you get people to care more about the facts of nutrition and how it affects human health and planetary health, and be influenced by those facts more than being seduced by stories and anecdotes on social media?
I wish I knew, Simon. I wish I knew. I can tell you what I've tried to do, but I don't know the answer. I don't think anybody knows the answer. And, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, they do travel more effectively than real facts for a whole host of reasons. One, you can make up whatever will travel most effectively. You can make up whatever titillation you want. Since you're not bounded by fact, you can simply prioritize what you think is going to captivate and titillate. The other thing that always comes to me in this context is a quote from Bertrand Russell, who said, "The whole thing wrong with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so sure, and wiser people so full of doubt." So you think of legitimate scientists, we almost never say absolutely, always, totally, complete. We're always hemming and hawing, and in general, and there are provisos, and there are exceptions, and there are edge cases, and that's how science works. But fools, fanatics, and I would append to Russell's list hucksters, so charlatans who've got something to sell, who know that it's not true, but are going to profit off of your gullibility. They're completely, adamantly sure. They promise you the moon and stars. I mean, every fad diet author that's ever been does this. So there's a magical formula no one else will tell you but me. And I guarantee, the weight will fall off. You'll have luxurious hair and radiant skin, and it will be effortless and easy and magical. And you'll only get it here because no one else is willing to tell you. There's been a massive conspiracy shielding you from this. That formula works every time. I don't know why we're such gullible nincompoops when it comes to diet nutrition, but we certainly are. And we've made almost every mistake it's imaginable to make, and we keep making them again and again and again. And with the advent of social media and now artificial intelligence and deep fakes and so forth, it's all getting worse. The one thing I've tried to do to answer this question, so how do you get people to, if not care more about the truth, at least know what the truth is to take a page from the playbook of Dr. Seuss and the Who's that Horton heard when they were in a critical fix, about to be boiled in bezel nut oil. The Who saved themselves by pulling together and pooling their voices. And they all cried out together, "We are here," and they were heard and they were saved. So in this case, it's the message isn't "we are here," but the message is "we agree." That there's actually a massive amount of consensus among diverse global experts and diverse global experts with different personal behaviors and preferences and practices and ideologies. So, it's all well and good if you can get a group of ardent vegans to say a plant-based diet is the way to go. But, you shrug your shoulders and say, they're all ardent vegans. Of course they're going to say that. But what if you can get, proponents of low carb diets to agree with that? Yeah, low carb's good, but you should do it for mostly plants because of planetary health and human health and the microbiome and all that. And what if you can get paleo advocates to say the same thing? We don't live in the Paleolithic anymore. Dorothy, we're not in the Paleolithic anymore, and you don't have enough acreage left on the planet with 8 billion hungry Homo sapiens for us to be hunter-gatherers. It's just, you'd need 15 times the surface area of the Earth. It's just not gonna work. We need to get our protein mostly from plants now, and what if you can get the Mediterranean diet proponents to agree? And well, I did exactly that. I created a nonprofit many years ago called the True Health Initiative, and that is its beating heart. It's a global panel of experts from 50 countries, roughly 500 of us, diverse expertise, diverse preferences, diverse personal behaviors, but all coming together to say, yeah, incontrovertibly, these are the fundamentals of a healthy diet, a healthy lifestyle. We all agree. So that's what I've tried to do. But I think, and this asking the question, what do we do to overcome all the noisy nonsense? We don't know because the noisy nonsense just keeps getting louder and louder. And our ability to generate signal audible above the noise and the din has been beleaguered ever more over recent years. My hope, I've done one thing to try and overcome it, but I think for the most part, we're losing the war. And by the way, we're losing the war with regard to nutrition and health, but we're also losing the war with regard to politics and democracy, and misinformation prevails everywhere to our detriment. So these are very perilous times. The one hope I have, Simon, is that when you think about individual humans, no matter how brilliant someone is destined to become, they pass through stages of psychological development. All children are gullible and impressionable. It's actually adaptive. We're social animals. One of the best ways to do well in a tribe is to fit in with the tribe. So whatever way people tell you you ought to behave, you believe it and you behave that way. It's one of the reasons why religion's so popular. You're raised in a religion, you're told these things are true, and you don't really challenge it. But as we grow and mature, we become more prone to question things, and ultimately we become pretty skeptical as adolescents first, and then as adults, we have more mature filters to help us differentiate sense from nonsense, information from misinformation.
When it comes to gut health, I couldn't find a supplement that did it all. So I formulated one with gastroenterologist Dr. Will Bolsowitz. It's called Daily Microbiome Nutrition, or DMN, by 38 Terra. And to our knowledge, it is the most complete prebiotic formula on the market today. We built DMN to support a healthy, diverse microbiome, which we now know plays a critical role in everything from digestion to immunity, metabolism, and even brain health. What sets DMN apart is that it contains clinically proven doses of ingredients like actazine and solnol, and it's a very concentrated source of polyphenols, all conveniently combined to nourish your gut bacteria and promote true microbial diversity. No artificial sweeteners, no gums or fillers, just science-backed plant-based ingredients in a once-a-day, incredibly delicious drink. So if you're looking to fuel your microbes and enjoy all the benefits that come with that, head to 38terra.com and use the code SIMON for 10% off. That's 38terra.com and use the code SIMON to feed those gut bugs.